Welcome to my channel Fazza Poems. Subscribe now. It had been years since her last message, years wrapped in silence, where words slept between the stars, and longing rested beneath his ribs. Sheikh Hamdan opened the message tonight, not because the pain had faded, but because it had softened into memory. The desert was quiet, the moon resting low like a confidant, and his fingers trembled as he reread her final words. I'll wait, even if it means forever. He had never replied then, not out of pride, but because his heart had no language strong enough to carry what he felt. Now, as time stood still around him, he found himself whispering into the night. You waited long enough. His eyes glistened with unspoken truths, and with every breath, old emotions stirred awake, not sharp anymore, but gentle, forgiving, tender. He began to write, not with his hands, but with his soul. Every word was a confession, not to her, but to the silence that had carried her name all these years. I thought of you in every prayer, he wrote, in every quiet dawn, when the world still belonged to dreams. You were there. The stars above blinked as if listening, as if they too had kept her message safe all this time. He remembered the ache of wanting to speak, but choosing to stay quiet, the kind of silence that is not absence, but protection. His heart had bled with restraint, loving her from a distance, where words could not survive. And yet tonight, every held back emotion found its way onto paper, soft, trembling and real. As he wrote, the wind stirred softly around him, carrying the scent of desert roses, her favorite. He smiled faintly, realizing how life had a way of circling back to what once felt lost. You asked me once if love fades, he wrote, pausing. It doesn't. It hides behind time, behind duty, behind the fear of hurting what it cherishes. The memory of her laughter brushed past his mind like music long forgotten, yet familiar. He saw her again, not as she was, but as she still lived in his memory, untouched by years, radiant in stillness. The moonlight fell over his page, illuminating each word like a secret revealed at last. It wasn't a reply written in haste. It was a reply written by the years themselves, patient, honest, and full of soul. His heart trembled as he imagined her face, reading his message, wherever she was. Would she still smile the same way? Would her eyes still search the horizon when she missed him? Forgive my silence, he wrote, the words trembling with sincerity. It wasn't that I didn't care, it was that I cared too much to speak wrongly. Every letter seemed to hum with the ache of withheld emotion. He thought of all the nights she must have waited, checking her phone under soft lamplight, whispering his name into the quiet. He thought of how love can become a ghost when left unanswered, yet never truly die. The stars watched as he finally set that ghost free, his words fluttering like wings across the desert's breath. He paused then, letting his pen fall, gazing toward the horizon. The night was deep, endless, alive with things unsaid. He could almost hear her voice in the wind, soft, forgiving, full of grace. You never owed me words, as it seemed to say. Your silence was its own kind of love. He closed his eyes, and the years melted away. Every missed chance, every held back message, every heartbeat that carried her name without sound. His reply wasn't just for her, it was for himself too. A way of telling his heart that it was safe now to feel again, safe to love, without fear. The desert around him shimmered with quiet light, as if destiny itself was listening to his confession. When dawn began to stir, he added one last line. If love was a language, ours was silence. But I finally learned how to speak it. The first rays of sunlight touched his page, golden and warm, sealing the words with peace. Hamdan smiled faintly, his heart light for the first time in years. He didn't know if she would ever read his message. Maybe it would drift into the universe instead, carried by wind and time. But that didn't matter anymore. Love didn't need to be received, to be real. It only needed to be released. His soul felt quieter now, like a storm that had finally learned to rest. He folded the page, and looked up at the sky. The same sky that had once carried her prayers, her tears, her waiting. The wind danced around him, playful, gentle, like her laughter echoing across time. I never stopped writing to you, he whispered. I just wrote through my silence. The desert answered with stillness, yet it felt alive with meaning. His heart no longer ached. It breathed. For the first time he realized that replying wasn't about words. It was about courage, about opening the door he'd kept closed for so long. The years of waiting had taught him that even unspoken love leaves footprints in eternity. As the morning gloomed, Sheikh Hamdan placed the letter beneath a small stone, letting the wind decide its fate. Maybe it would travel across the dunes to where she once stood, or maybe it would dissolve into the air. Either way, it would reach her soul. He stood there quietly, his expression serene, his eyes reflecting both the ache of what was lost and the peace of what remained. Time separated us, he whispered, but love remembered the way. The desert seemed to glow brighter, every grain of sand holding the warmth of his unspoken devotion. He smiled, tears glimmering like dawnlight, knowing that some messages don't need to be read, they only need to be felt. And as the day unfolded, the silence between them became sacred again, no longer heavy, no longer waiting. Somewhere he believed her heart would feel the whisper of his reply, not through screens or words, but through the invisible bond that distance could never sever. He looked once more toward the horizon, his lips curving into a tender smile. The years had taken much, but they had also given him understanding. Love isn't about the moment we speak, it's about the eternity that listens. So he walked away, heart unburdened, eyes bright with peace, carrying not the ache of delay, but the beauty of a love that had finally found its voice. As Sheikh Hamdan walked away from the spot where he had left the letter, the wind carried with it a sense of completion, not an ending, but a quiet return. His heart no longer felt heavy. Instead it glowed with a gentle warmth, the kind that only truth can bring. He looked back once, just once, as if to honor the silence that had once held both their names. The sun had risen fully now, painting the desert in gold, and for a fleeting moment, he could almost see her there, smiling softly, as if she too had received his reply in the language only love understands. And in that sacred stillness, he whispered to the morning light, some replies don't need to be sent, they simply need to be felt.